What's cracking, guys? Welcome to the second video of the MLOps series, and in this video we're going to basically focus on this particular component of this system we saw in the first video of this series. So we're going to focus on building a front-end server, and we're going to use Streamlit to do this in this particular video. So the idea will be to build like an end-to-end application. We'll treat, for the backend part, we'll just treat it as a black box. We're going to use the HuggingFace Inference API. But by the end of this video, we'll have a fully-fledged Streamlit application deployed to Streamlit Cloud, and you're going to learn how to do that yourself, and we're going to get familiar with Streamlit. And we're also going to see, in case you're not familiar with Git, the versioning system, the code versioning system, I'm going to show you a couple of basic commands that we need to get started, basically. Okay, without further ado, let me just pull my VS Code here, and let's start basically attacking these steps one by one. So first things first, let's create our environment. And here I'm assuming that you already have your mini Conda or Conda environment set up on your machine. If you don't know how to do that, I did create a whole basically series where I showed you how to not just install the software, I showed you how to build your own machine, how to install the operating system, and then install mini Conda and everything else. So in case you're stuck, you might want to check out the third video of this series where I install all of these necessary tools. Okay, guys. Okay, so let's build the Conda environment. So Conda, create name. Let's call it Streamlit Playground, and let's use something like Python 3.11, and let's hit enter here, and then hit yes here. And now let's wait for the environment to be set up. So now we can just activate it. Oops, let me just copy paste this one. Here we are. We are now in the environment. And now let me just navigate here. So I'm gonna open up this root folder here, and I'm going to just copy this path, and let's navigate to this particular path. And now we just want to do the following. We want to do pip, pip install requirements. So let me just autocomplete here so we can run this. So what I went ahead and I've just like added a couple of necessary packages that we'll need, but this is like bare minimum, just to get us started. And I think that's going to be plenty for this application that we are building. Okay, so let's wait for the environment to complete. Here it is. So let me navigate back to Streamlit. Now I think we have everything we need. Whoops. So that's step one. Now let's focus on understanding how Streamlit works. So we can start with the main concepts. The documentation is very nice. And the first thing I'm going to do is let's just start our Streamlit application. So currently it's just a dummy application. There's nothing really happening. I'm just importing Streamlit here. So I'm going to do Streamlit run, and then I'm going to say the name of the Streamlit script, which is in our case streamlit.py. So if I run this, it's going to start a web server locally, and we'll be able to access it through our browsers. So let me now just minimize this, and here we are. So as I told you, it's nothing happening there. So let me just try and scribble something down. Maybe, well, Copilot is helping me here, so I'm just gonna enter here, and then it offers you to basically do to rerun. So you're gonna opt in for doing always rerun, and that means that from now on, it's gonna continuously, whatever we change here in the VS Code, we're going to automatically see it reflected real time in the browser. That's very cool. It helps you understand how your changes affect the end application. Okay, let me maybe zoom in a little bit here. You can also do stuff like type the string directly into your script, and it's going to use Streamlit magic, and basically it's going to have the same result as if we were to write st-write. Now I'm going to take this this document, I'm going to put it on side here, and I'm just going to start copy pasting some parts and explaining how those work, and so that we can get some familiarity with basically Streamlit. Okay, guys, let's now start adding stuff to our application. So let me start by just importing pandas. Let me import numpy as np, standard stuff, And let me now start copy pasting some interesting snippets so we can see what Streamlit is capable of. So we can see here that as soon as I've saved this, the app here offers us to rerun. And so I'm gonna opt in for always rerun, which means that now as soon as we edit something in the VS Code in your IDE, it's going to automatically reflect directly inside of the application. So one thing I want you to kind of note here is that I'll be copy pasting some snippets, and you should not try and focus on understanding remembering the syntax or the function signature, etc. Just focus on understanding what's the scope, what's the feature set that Streamlit as a framework offers you, and that's a general advice when learning new stuff. Like, do not focus initially on just like those minutia and those nitty-gritty details. Just focus on understanding what the app offers, and then when you start building, you can just use search and find the particular documentation for the reference for the particular function you care about, and then you can dig into depth. But for now, just focus on understanding what the framework itself offers. So here we can see that I've instantiated a pandas data frame. And then using the same type of magic that we saw before with the string, now we can see that Streamlit is smart enough to interpret this pandas data frame object and basically plot it as a table inside of the front end application here on the left hand side. Okay, let's start and add a couple more snippets here. Let's see what Streamlit is capable of. So I'm gonna just save this, and you can see it's automatically reflected here, so it makes for a very fun workflow, and that's very cool and helps you debug stuff faster than if you had to recompile or rerun or whatnot. Okay, that's kind of neat. So here what happened is we are now just explicitly calling Streamlit right instead of relying on the underlying Streamlit magic, right? So we just write some title, and we have drawn a table here of that particular pandas data frame. So let's see what else is interesting. Maybe I'm going to show you one more, and then we can switch to some line charts. So there is you can do stuff like this, like you can create these tables, and you can highlight, for example, maximum element in each of the columns. And by the way, I showed you this, but like I'm just copy pasting stuff from the main concepts documentation. I'm gonna link that down in the video description. But the idea now, as I said, is to just see what the framework is capable of. So let me show you this one. This might be fun. So we can draw line charts like this one here, because you can see here we generated a matrix 20 by 3, which means we'll have 3 different arrays, and then we can just call the line chart function and display that data, the data frame, and we get a very nice diagram like this one here. So you can see it's super easy to build these data dashboards. And then you're gonna see a bit later that it's super easy to deploy this and share with the rest of your team, which makes for a very nice collaboration with your colleagues. Okay, let me show you what else is possible. So we can plot something like map, and you can see here the map of San Francisco. I'm not sure. Yeah, this is just again random data being plotted here. So we just have 1000 by 2. Which means we have latitude and longitude, and then we can just call stmap, and we get something like this. And this is fully interactive map. And now imagine you had to do this manually in like Matplotlib or whatnot. I'm not sure even if Matplotlib offers these functions, but usually you have to customize a lot of details. What Streamlit does for you, it just kind of works. The defaults are good enough for most purposes, most practical purposes, but you also have a lot of flexibility to basically customize and get what you want. Okay, so let's continue. Let me show you a couple more things. So we can add something like a slider. So let me add a slider here. So you can see here down below, I've added a slider, and if we move the slider, you can see how this text here is automatically modified. So 43 squared is 1849, blah blah blah, etc, etc. So the trick here is we add the widget, so we call the slider, and then we can use that widget and just treat it as a regular variable. So we basically write the widget. So Streamlit is again smart enough to know how to extract the data from that widget, and then we say square it is, and then we just print the square of the slider, right? And that's how we get this particular piece of text here. And hopefully you can see it. Let me zoom in a bit more if you don't. Yeah, this should be better now. Okay, let's continue on. I just want to kind of shotgun, approach this with a shotgun approach, just showing you stuff that's possible, and then we're gonna dig into a bit more details a bit later. So here you can see we have text input. You can basically now input your name here, Aleksa, and then hit enter, and you can see here it's directly using the Streamlit magic. This session state.name is going to be displayed here as a piece of string. So how this works is, because we added a key argument here for the text input, and then session state is this, well, as the name suggests, it's a session state. Even if you have multiple pages in a Streamlit app, and we'll get to how you do that a bit later, you can access particular variables that are part of the session state, and then just manipulate them or share them across pages, etc., etc. So that's kind of neat. Okay, let me show you this one. We have options to use not just sliders and text inputs. We also have obviously checkboxes. So if we check this one, you can see we can easily display this table or not, depending on the value of the checkbox. So you can see here we use widget as a variable. So that's kind of a thing with Streamlit. Widgets are variables. So you can always think of them as variables and then treat them as such. So here we just treat it as a Boolean variable. And then you can see here we're going to instantiate the pandas data frame, and we just use Streamlit magic to plot it upon click, because that's when the condition is true and we enter this branch. Okay, guys, a couple more things here. This might be fun. Select box. Let me just do it like this. Let me save this. So here we can pick some numbers. It's like drop down list, and then we again print it here. So here nothing fancy really. Select box, we just say df first column, which means we grab this array here. That's why we have options 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what we do is we just take whatever option was chosen, and again we treat the widget as a variable, and we just do it like this, and we get printed result in the app. Okay, let me now show you this one. This is fairly cool. We can add a sidebar to our application. So if we do something like this, you can see we have a new sidebar. We can open it up, we can close it, and you can see here again we can pick some values here from the select box. So the only thing that changed is that now we have to do st sidebar and then add the widget. So now it's select box inside of the sidebar, right? Everything else remains the same as before when we had it directly on the page here. We can also add a slider, again, inside of the sidebar, and you can specify values, blah, blah, blah. We can make it double. We can make it like a, what's the word, I guess, bidirectional slider. I don't know, I just invented that word on the spot. Okay, let's continue. Let me show you a couple more neat things that will help you organize your Streamlit app. We can add columns. So you can see here, now on the left hand side we have a button, and on the right hand side we can add something like these radio buttons here. So let me show you how that works. We add let me just zoom in here a little bit as well, might be better. Okay, so we have st columns here, and we get left column and right column, and then on the left column we just add button. So similar syntax as with the sidebar beforehand. You just access that particular element, and then you say dot, and then you instantiate, for example, button or select box or whatnot, right? And then you can also use this different syntax with, like this context manager with right column, and then you say st radio. So we now specify radio button with all of these options here, and then we can just use st right, and then you can see here you are in Gryffindor house. And then if we change this, it's going to automatically rerun and update the app. So it's kind of cool with Streamlit. The thing is, as soon as you change a widget, what happens in the background is that the Streamlit will just rerun your script from start to bottom of your script, and everything is going to be updated with that particular new value of the variable, the widget, thus the variable. Nice. So I think we are almost done with this initial shotgun approach Let me just copy paste a couple more snippets here. So I'm going to have to import time here apparently. So let me just import time. Let me save this, and you can see here we can do stuff like progress bars. So what we've done here is we instantiate this empty object, so a latest iteration. We instantiate a bar, so we just st progress, and then we initialize it with 0, which means it's going to be 0 progress. Initially it's going to be empty, and then for we just iterate, and because well, usually you have I guess the bar can be from 0 to 100% completed, and then what we can do is update the bar using the bar.progress, and then just pass in the value of the this variable, and that's it. And we just add some sleep to make it a bit slower update. Otherwise, it would be too fast and we wouldn't see anything. Okay, there is a bunch more stuff we can do. We can also just customize the appearance. I think we can do like settings, and then of course we can change the theme. There is the dark and the light one by default. You can also edit your themes, change the primary color, the text color, the background color, etc., etc. There is a lot of customization you can do, but I don't think that's as relevant for this particular video, so I'm gonna skip that. We can also do caching. We'll see that in a second. But basically you can call methods such as cache data and cache resource. We're gonna see those in a second. But first, the last thing I want to show you here is let me show you how we can build multiple pages. It's trivial. We literally just have to create a folder called pages, and then we just need to create a Python script inside of it. Maybe because I'm being very creative today, I'm gonna just call it second.py, and you can see here all of a sudden we have two apps. We have Streamlit app, we have second one, and obviously we can now just write stuff here, whatever, like second page, save, and we should be able to see, whoops, well, I did not import Streamlit, so let me just, because I'm lazy, I'm just gonna copy paste it from here. So something like this, and this should now work. Import Streamlit. Why is this not working? Let me try and refresh this. Maybe it's just, yeah, it was just some glitch. Apparently it's not smart enough to pick up the change in the pages. I doubt it. Let me try and add something else. What else? Let me just do something like this. We have to call always rerun here, and then now it should work. Okay, let me see whether this actually works. No, it does not, because Copilot kind of hallucinated first.py, because it assumed, because this is second.py, that we have first.py, but we actually have Streamlit.py. So this is not gonna work. But anyhow, very, very cool. Guys, that's it. Those are the basics. Now let me just show you a couple more things. We're gonna first build a very simple app to show you again a bit more principles and things that you need to know about Streamlit, and then we can basically focus on building our own app. So let me remove this. Let me delete this part here, and let me also just delete the pages directory. We don't need it anymore, and I think I'll have to refresh here. Whoops, second, let me just delete this, and this should now work, I think. Hopefully I didn't break it. Okay, I think something is stuck here. The easiest way to resolve this is to just stop the app and then rerun it again, and voila, everything seems to work. Now let's start building this small app. So, okay, so let's first add stuff like, let's add title. We can add title to our app. Let's set the always rerun again. So we now have title here. And then, so title is basically same as st-right. It just applies certain, I guess, CSS stuff in the background. So just customization, so that it changes the appearance, but nothing fancy really. So let's start by creating a couple of functions. So load data is just going to basically read a CSV file that's stored in the S3 bucket here. And then after we do that, we just do some pre-processing. So we have this lowercase lambda function. We just apply that on top of our data, and then we then additionally call this transformation to to datetime, sorry, and we return back the pandas data frame. But like again, this is do not focus that much on this. This is just a black box function. It returns some data frame object. That's it. The reason I'm using it is because I want to show you the caching functionality of Streamlit. We're gonna see that in a couple of minutes. Okay, so let me continue building this app. So I'm just going to add this. So we're gonna print some text on the screen, loading data. We're going to load data. We're gonna pass 10,000, which means we're gonna fetch 10,000 rows from our CSV. And then once that's done, we're going to print loading data done. Again, let me just move this so as to make it a bit bigger. So let's see what happens. I'm gonna click save here and watch what happens on the screen here. Okay, so we are loading data. It takes some time. After a while, loading data is done. Okay, that's one thing. Later, we're gonna see as soon as we add caching, this is gonna be almost instantaneous. So let me show you how we can do that. Basically, if we just decorate this particular function with stcache data, and if I save this, and now you can see here, it's loading again and it's done. But now the second time we do this, let me change something. Let me change something to force the rerun of the script, because that's again how Streamlit works. Remember, let me just add something dummy like loading data 2 here, and that's enough for me to trigger the update, the rerun of the whole script. So let me now hit Control S for saving, and let's see what happens. Whoops, that piece of text disappears apparently because, okay, let me just add 2 here. So I'm gonna now hit save again, and you can see here, now we immediately get the result. And the reason is, well, because we've cached the result. The thing is, how Streamlit works in the background is if you pass the same arguments, it's going to just return the cached result, and because of that, it doesn't have to do the calculation again. So this is kind of similar to what you might be familiar with this if you're using JAX as your deep learning framework. Very simple logic, and very similar to what JAX is doing. So let me now let me see, if we were to change the argument, then I would force again the rerun of the functions. Let's see what happens again. You can see here now I'm forcing the load data function to be run. That's pretty much everything you need to know about this basic caching mechanism. There is also the cache resource function, which helps you cache stuff like database connections, etc., but it's again just a caching mechanism, nothing fancy there, right? Okay, let me continue building this app. I'm gonna add a couple more details. So we add this raw data stuff. So data is again the data we loaded, and then we can draw some histograms. So let me just, I'm just adding some subheaders. Again, this is equivalent, if you're familiar with HTML. This is something like maybe H2 or H3, or for that matter, if you're familiar with Markdown, with markup languages. Fairly similar, trivial stuff here. Don't bother about the syntax that much. Okay, let's build a histogram, and let's create a bar chart using that histogram. So what happens here is we're gonna pick one particular column, and that column is the time here, and we grab the hours. So I guess this just shows us the number of pickups during that particular hour of the day. That's the semantics behind this data. And we just have 24 bins because we have 24 hours in the day, the last time I checked. So let me hit save here, and you can see here, immediately we get a very nice histogram plot here. Again, the benefit of using Streamlit is everything works like out of the box. The config seems to be reasonable, and you don't really have to bother about customization and adding bunch of arguments to get what you want to see. Okay, so let me add a couple more things. Now let's draw this on a map. So maybe I'm going to no, I'm gonna just keep on adding stuff. So let me just plot the same data using the stmap function we saw already before. So here it is. So you can see here the pickup locations. I guess which city is this? Yeah, it doesn't matter. Anyhow, so that's the map. And now let's be a bit smarter about it. Let's now add some filtering. We can add something like this. So let me replace this subheader and map with this. So we first do the filtering. This is just your pandas syntax. We just filter our data such that we only extract the events that happen, the pickups that happen at 5 p.m. And then we we just create a title here, a subheader, and then we plot the filter data. Okay, and you can see here the map modified here. But the cool thing, this would not really be that fun if we didn't have an option to interact with our front-end app. So because of that, let's add something like this. Let's basically add a slider, and then the default value is going to be, again, 5 p.m. But we'll be able to change the value. So let's maybe change, and let's go here. So you can see here there is way less pickups at 2 a.m. than obviously at like 3 p.m. So that's fun. You can see that this application is already becoming very rich. Yeah, it took us only a couple of 10-20 minutes to do this. Okay, because this app is kind of getting out of control. I have to scroll. Let me just add a checkbox to control this part here, so we can just wrap it inside of a checkbox. So if I save it here, now it's kind of more manageable. And again, we can just show the data if we want here. And yeah, we saw how to build one simple app from scratch. Now I want to walk you through a couple more things. There's this cheat sheet here, and let's see whether there is something interesting that I can additionally show you here. We've seen the magics. We've seen how we can just put a variable directly in the script, and that's gonna be interpreted correctly by Streamlit. The cool thing is this. Maybe I'm gonna show you this one. Let me delete this app. Now I'm just gonna delete everything here. I'm gonna print the LaTeX expression. It's gonna be very nicely rendered on top of our front-end application. You can see here we can also display stuff like code, and it's gonna be very nicely rendered again. You can do a bunch of stuff. You can see here, you can display an image, an audio file, a video file. There is a lot of things you can do. You can add widgets to sidebar. We've seen that. We can use columns. We've seen that as well. You can do tabs. Let me show you what tabs are. This might be fun. Let me just copy paste a couple of these. And guys, this is like the best way to learn a framework. Just like open up the docs, copy paste stuff, see what happens. Maybe tweak a little bit your code and figure out what's going on and what's possible with the framework. We can do stuff like, and I'm gonna use this a bit later. We can add a form. So let me just maybe delete these. Let me just delete this. Okay. And yeah. Just delete this, delete this, delete this, and indent this thingy. So that's fun. I'm gonna show you that as well. Let's see what else. We've seen buttons. We've seen, well, we haven't seen the button yet, but yeah, you can imagine. Select box, multi-select. This is kind of cool. Let me show you the multi-select. I'm gonna show you this one. I think I missed one parenthesis. That's fine. Okay, what else? Text area. There is a lot of things. You can like do stuff like calendar, color picker. You can take an image of yourself via your webcam or whatnot. There is a lot of cool things you can do. You can use widgets to return values as variables. We've seen that a bunch of times already, so I'm gonna skip that. You can do stuff like add balloons. There is a lot of things that Streamlit offers out of the box. So balloons is like basically this gesture that you show when a user has done something successfully or whatnot. Yeah, there is a lot of cool things. There is like this progress. I'm gonna show you a couple more things, and I think we're done, and then we can just quickly build the app, and we are pretty much ready to start developing stuff in Streamlit. Caching stuff. What else? Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm going to focus on these guys. And now let me show you what we get here. So I'm going to comment everything other than LaTeX. Let's focus on all of these elements one by one. So LaTeX, as I told you, very nicely rendered. You can render your fancy math equations directly in your front-end app without having to invest effort really. It's just mathematical notation here directly interpreted as LaTeX expression, and you get a nice rendering here. Okay, we can, as I said, we can render code. Let me show you this one. You can see here, very nice, and you can also copy to clipboard. So you can see here now I have this particular expression copied to my clipboard. Works as marketed. Okay, so there is the tab stuff. I did show you the columns. This is also useful. Tabs help you organize your information inside of these mini embedded tabs on your page. So you can now imagine you can do whatever you want, and it on tab 2, and it's going to be hidden when you're on tab 1 and stuff like that. So it's just organizational detail. Multi-select, so you can pick multiple options here, and then again later you can use that as a variable and just feed that into your other part of your application. We're going to actually use multi-select as soon as we start building the mini app. There is the form stuff. You can see how you can create a beautiful form effortlessly, really, in a couple of lines of code, blah blah blah, and you can add your information and then hit login, and you can, of course, you can attach here stuff like on click, and you can just specify a function that you want to run when somebody hits your login button. That's it. Let me now uncomment the balloons part. So here, as expected, balloons pop up. That was kind of fun, and let me just remove the balloons for a second, and let me show you this spinner part. So you can see here in progress, you can easily add these spinners in case you're doing something, your application is doing some work, and you just add a visual piece of feedback for your users so that they know something is going on and that the application didn't just freeze. Okay, I think we're almost done. There is also the API reference, as I mentioned. You can just open up any of these functions like stwrite or magic or whatnot. You can see the signature, how the function works, and there are also very nice visuals. You can see here they actually embed a small app here, and you can see exactly how each of these functions in the API works. So that's kind of cool. Let me remove this and let's continue. Let's see whether there is something that I forgot to show you. Metrics, static tables, data frames, JSONs. Oh yeah, you can also do that, but I'm gonna skip it because otherwise I would be digressing too much. There are a lot of beautiful options for plotting, as you can see here, because Streamlit apparently cooperates very nicely with a lot of third-party visualization libraries, and you can see very beautiful plots are possible, and you can do that fairly effortlessly. So let me just skim here and see whether there is something that I might have missed that might be worth mentioning. File uploader, as I said, camera input, blah blah blah, bunch of stuff. We've seen all of this. We've seen columns, we've seen tabs, we've seen the sidebar, we've seen all of this really. Spinner, snowflakes, blah blah blah. Nothing interesting there. Okay, this is fun. Let me show you this one. This is how you can customize your. I have a snippet here I already prepared, so let me show you this one. Let me just open up our app. Let me remove everything here, and let's just specify this. Whoops, let me just give me a second. So let me just copy paste this. So you can see here we can specify. You can see now we have the title of this app is Streamlit, and the page icon is the Streamlit icon. So if we now do this, if I just save this, you can see the app is now called the Epiphany, and we have our own favicon icon. So all of the things you see on the screen here are apparently customizable. You can just do a lot of cool things with Streamlit. Okay, let me again. I think we're done. I think this is pretty much. I've covered a lot of ground that you really need to start building apps, and everything else is just advanced stuff. The very last detail that's kind of worth mentioning is that Streamlit is collecting telemetry of your usage and stuff. So they say here, as mentioned during the installation process, Streamlit collects usage statistics. You can find out more by reading our privacy notice. You can check it out if you want. But the high-level summary is that although we collect telemetry data, we cannot see and do not store information contained in the apps themselves. So yeah, if you're kind of paranoid, you can always opt out by adding this gather usage stats set to false, you just have to basically modify a certain config. I'm not gonna go there right now, but just be aware this exists and you do have that control under your belt. Okay guys, now it's time to build some backend, and let's build a fully fledged end-to-end front-end and backend application, and let's deploy it to Streamlit Cloud. This is gonna be fun and fairly simple. So I'm just going to, I have this model from HuggingFace that I'm going to use here. Basically what we can do here, so I've opened up HuggingFace, as you can see here. You just have to hit deploy really, Inference API, and HuggingFace is such an amazing platform that you can just copy paste stuff. They already have existing solution how you can connect with the Inference API. You can also create your own dedicated inference endpoint. So this endpoint, the thing with this endpoint is apparent. Obviously, you cannot use this one in your production app because a lot of other people have access to this particular endpoint, because as you can see, this is a public endpoint. So I'm going to explain that in a second. But for now, let me just create a new access token just for me to show you how this works. So you'll have to create an access token if you don't already have one. So I'm gonna create something like MLOps demo 2, whatever, and I'm gonna pick read here because we're going to, I guess the read is kind of confusing here, but I assume that if I'm pinging, I'm not posting anything to the endpoint, I'm just reading from the endpoint. That's why read makes sense, right? Write would be if I was to somehow update the endpoint itself, which I'm not going to do. I'm just going to ask it to do some type of inference for me. So I'm going to generate a token here, and now I'm going to go back here. Whoops, let's go back here. Let me just refresh the page. Deploy Inference API. Let's pick the, you can see here in the drop-down list, we now have the MLOps demo 2, and I'm just going to show the API token because I'm going to delete it after this video is posted. And so now we can just copy paste this particular snippet, and we can analyze what's going on. Let me open up the app here. I'm going to remove the LaTeX expression, and here we are. Let me just push this requests import here. Let me maybe just organize this a bit, tidy it up a little bit. So we have Python libs up there, third-party libs here, just some readability stuff. Okay, so you can see here, first thing is we have API URL. That's the inference endpoint that they've provided. So that means in the background, HuggingFace had to basically set up the backend service. That's something that we'll learn over the next later videos. But for now, we just accept that somebody has built a backend service. They have a model loaded there. So that's nothing abstract. When somebody says an endpoint or inference, that sounds very abstract, but it's actually fairly easy. There is a machine, same as your computer, just somewhere in some data center, and they basically they've loaded a model on that machine, and you're now interacting with that machine. So that's it. It's fairly simple, really. So because it's not practice to just apparently use your keys, private keys in an open like this, I'm going to show you what's the best practice. I really think this is important, so I'm going to remove this from here, and let's just put something like API key or something, and I'm going to make this an F string, and API key is going to be ST, I think it's secrets. It's either secret or secrets. Let me just see how this is gonna work. Okay, let me just paste this token so that we don't lose it. So we have a token here. I think it's secret, but let me just double check. So let's Google Streamlit. Is it secrets or secret? I'm not sure. Secrets management, blah blah blah. I think it's in the bottom of the page here. ST secret. Okay, so it's secrets. So we have to do something like this. ST secrets, and then oops, secrets, and then we have to do something like let's call this API key, and now we have to define this. Okay, let me just close this page down. We don't need it anymore. and let me show you what I'm going to do here. So we have to do the following. We have to create a directory here called Streamlit, so .streamlit, and then inside of that directory we have to create a new file, which is going to be called, I think it has to be called secrets toml. I might be incorrect, so let me just reopen this thingy and let me just see in the docs. So it says, yeah, so we have to have, so when developing your app locally, add a file called secrets.toml in a folder called .streamlit at the root of your app repo and copy paste your secrets into that file. That's exactly what we are doing. So let me now take this particular key and let me say API key, this is just a variable name, and whoops, oh my god, what am I doing? And let me just, oops, I think I made a mistake here. I just have to again cut this and then paste it here. And now we have API key here. So the thing with this secrets.toml file is that we are not going to submit, we're not going to commit this particular file into our versioning system, which means nobody has access to this private key other than our local machine. So that's how you, well, that's how you keep secret. You don't want to commit your secret keys inside of your code, because that means somebody might, imagine you have your dedicated inference endpoint, that means you're paying for that inference endpoint, and somebody else can just start either DDoSing your endpoint or just burning your money or whatnot. So yeah, there are multiple reasons why that's a smart idea to just store the key like this. Okay, this is it. This should now work. Let me just see whether everything is fine. So we're going to pull the API key here. We're going to pass it here. So we have just this header thingy. Let me just do it like this. So we then do requests post to this particular URL. We're going to post this header. So this tells that URL, hey, I'm allowed to access that particular endpoint because I have the key. It's like a password. You're logging into an application, and then we're gonna pass a payload. So what's a payload? For this particular model that I'm using, because it's just a zero-shot classifier, we're going to pass a sentence that we want to classify, and we want to pass labels. And these labels, because it's a zero-shot classifier, can be arbitrary labels. So that means we have the freedom to do whatever we want here. We can put whatever labels we want. But for now, let's just use the default ones that we copied from the Hugging Face website. So that's, again, remember, this is what we copied from the website. We haven't really done anything smart here so far. So now let me just save this and let's see whether it works. Okay, authorization header is correct, but the token seems invalid. I might have made a mistake here, so let's see what's up. Something's weird. Let me just double check here. So API token, I created an API token, Hugging Face, blah blah blah. This seems to be the right thing, right? Oops, okay, I see a mistake. I made authorization an F string instead of the bearer token here. That was a silly mistake. Let me just go back here, let me save, and now it works. Awesome, guys. So you can see here the sequence we sent to the inference endpoint, the labels, and you can see the scores that the model gave us. So let me read the sentence here. Hi, I recently bought a device from your company, but it is not working as advertised, and I would like to get reimbursed, which means that the refund label makes the most sense, and you can see that the model was fairly confident that refund is the appropriate label. So that kind of works. Nice. So as you can see here, this is not really a Streamlit app. This is just a JSON file dumped and parsed correctly by the Streamlit magic logic. But let's now create an actual application. So what we can do is we can do stuff like, I'm going to now open up the, let me see where the API reference is. I'm going to find the, or cheat sheet even better, multi-select, I'm going to grab this element. Whoops, let me just copy it. Okay, here it is. And let's now start working on making this a nice app. So I'm going to create a multi-select, and I'm going to basically, well, for now I'm just going to take these labels here. I'm going to put them here. And then, because remember, this is just your variable, I'm going to put maybe like stuff like labels here. So widget is in Streamlit, widget is a label, so we can just do something like this, and then I can pass a label here. Labels here. Oops, let me just spell that correctly. And I think this should work now. And I think it does. That's cool. That's cool. So we can add a piece of text like choose your labels here. And now you can see here we can pick stuff like this, and that's the first part of our application. So we have one piece of an input here. Let me kind of try and make this a bit cleaner. So I'm gonna put some GUI elements here. The second element we need to replace this, instead of hard coding inputs here, I want to, let me just minimize this maybe a bit like this. Okay, so I want to take this piece of text here and cut it, and let's put that into some type of a text area, right? So I'm going to put it here, and let me just find how we can do that. So I think it's called text area. I think cheat sheet might be more handy here. Text area, I think that's the one. And then we can use the API. So once we find it in the cheat sheet, we can maybe find it in the actual reference. Let me open up the reference here. So here we are. Let's see how it works. So we have to pass so this first argument is basically same as here. It's going to be the title above our particular GUI element. So let me just do something like this. I'm going to just paste this here, and then I'm going to paste this part here, and that's pretty much it. And let me now put some reasonable comment here. So enter your text. Oops. Enter your text for classification. And let me just maybe put this here so we can make it a bit more readable, although it's not really that readable. Why am I getting tabs here? This is weird. Anyhow, I'm just gonna keep it like this. So I'm gonna call this inputs, and I'm now going to pass inputs here. Again, remember, this is just going to grab the value from here, and it's gonna treat it as a variable. So let me go back here. Oops, let me go back to our app. If I save this, you can see here now we have a text area, and by default this is the value, but we can change that value in a second. And finally, what I want to do is take a form, make this a part of a form, and then we can just have a button that says classify or run inference or whatnot. So let me do the following thing. Let me find okay, here it is. Let me find this part here. Whoops, let me just copy this part. And this is, my guys, how actual development looks like. You just copy paste stuff, but like that does require understanding of what you're doing. So yeah, that's kind of a defense to all of us developers and engineers. So let me just kind of remove these nasty symbols, and let me indent this, and this should now work. So now I'm just going to do the following. I'm going to replace these two with what we need, and that's these two guys here. So instead of that, I'm just gonna do something like this. I'm gonna wrap these guys into a form, and then I'm gonna add this button here, and let me just remove the white spaces here, make it a bit cleaner. So maybe we can just do classify exclamation mark. Okay, so now if I save this, let me now save this, and let's see whether it's going to work. Of course it's not going to work, but we'll still have a form. That's cool. So we are getting somewhere. We now have some app that looks like something. But now we have to do what? We have to connect this button with some action, right? Okay, let's see how we can do that. I guess let's first extract this part, the payload. So I'm going to do something like this. I'm gonna have a payload. It's gonna be this particular dictionary, and then let me maybe put the function somewhere here. So the function should be defined there, and then we can maybe do, I'm not sure whether this is gonna work. Let me try. So like on click, query, and let me just remove all of these parts here. Okay, so and then we have to pass the payload. I'm not sure whether it's going to work, but let me try. And then maybe let's do something like, it's kind of hacky, but let's see whether this is going to work. ST right here. Okay, this is complaining for some reason. Aha, okay, I see. It's complaining because of the tabs here. Nasty bug. Let me just do something like this. Okay, now it should work. So if we do st right response JSON, this should now work. So let's see whether it's working or not. Okay, I think we also have to put these guys up here. And now it seems it's okay, it's not working because we did not pass any arguments. Let's try and do the following. Let me pick like refund, legal, and FAQ here, and let's now hit classify, and dictionary object is not callable. Okay, forget this. I think I know how we're going to do this. So we're going to do something like following. Instead of doing this, we're not going to do this because it's anti-pattern. We're going to do something like this. Submitted. Let's grab the value there, and then we say the following. If submitted, then we do the following. I don't like the suggestions here from, well, actually, this recommendation is good other than this part here, because this is just slowing down the code unnecessarily. So what we do is we grab the payload, we pass the we call the query function, we get the results, and we just do st right. This should now work, I think. Let's test it out. So let's pick a couple of labels, maybe refund, maybe legal. Well, let's pick all three there, and then we have this sentence. If we hit classify, voila, and here it is. So this is already a decent, very simple, but a decent and end-to-end application web app. We have the backend, we have the front end here, although the front end is currently only deployed on my local machine, which is kind of not useful if you guys want to try it out. So we're going to deploy it. But before that, let's maybe try something, some custom labels and stuff. Let me maybe try and do the following. Let me put like random nouns here, like bro and sis and okay, let's now try this one. So we now have two new labels, bro and sis, and now here we're gonna say what's up bro, and let's see what happens. So if I save this, if we pick both labels and if we run classify, I would expect bro label to have more weight. So you can see here bro weight has 0.75 here, and if I put sis here and then put classify, we can see again now sis has 0.9. So it seems to be working as expected, and I'm going to stop here because yeah, it's becoming a bit silly. So okay guys, now let's deploy this thing. So let me open up the our directory here, and let me open git bash here. So this is your interface when interacting with Git. You can either use this or you can also use the graphical interface, but I'm just used to using the console myself. So first thing we want to do, so this is kind of Git tutorial 101, very simple basic stuff. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. We're going to first initialize this and tell Git that this particular directory here, the MLOps directory here, is a Git repository. So that we do that by typing in git init. And watch what happens when I enter git init. So currently we have only these three elements here, a single folder and two files. If I hit this, we're gonna have a small .git folder being added. And that's basically the database, the Git database. That's where Git is going to be tracking the differences between all of your commits, and it's going to help you version your code. So that's the first thing. So now if we type, so this is the second useful command. If you do something like git status, you're going to see the files that are not yet committed. So Git is not yet tracking these files. It says untracked files. So we can do the following thing. We can do this in multiple ways, but maybe the textbook example would be, hey, I want to add, first we want to probably add a git ignore file because we don't want to accidentally commit the secrets file. So we can do the following thing. Let me go here and let me add a file called .gitignore. That's a special file for Git. And we're going to do the following thing. We're going to just say Streamlit. And that tells Git that we want to ignore this Streamlit directory. So let me just save that and let me see what happens now when we say git status. So git status, and as you can see here, now we don't have the Streamlit directory, so we can now safely add stuff to our, basically commit these files. So I'm going to do the following. I'm going to say git add, and then we can either add the names, the explicit names of the files we want to add, or we can just do git add dot, which is going to add all of these files. Okay, and let's see what happens now. Git status, all of them are green. So this means we added them to something called a staging area. I might be able to find an interesting diagram that might make this a bit more intuitive. Git staging visualize or something, I don't know. Let's just see whether, I saw some very cool diagram recently. Some of these might be useful. Yeah, I think this one might work as well. So you can see here we have local repository and we have remote repository, right? We haven't yet created a remote one. I'm going to create that in a second on my GitHub profile. So by doing git add, we added all of these files to staging area. The next thing we're going to do is git commit. That's going to commit those to the local repo, and then the next command we're going to run is git push. That's going to push the new commit to the remote repository. Later, if some other developer, if we are collaborating, pushes to that same repo, we might want to pull their changes, so we can do just git pull. So there is a lot of these commands. I'm not going to now focus on all of them. It takes some time to learn Git, but I'm going to just show you the basic commands that you need to set up this app. Okay, so now we're gonna do, as I said, git commit, and let's do something silly like add basic Streamlit app. You just put some message that makes sense to you. There are some rules there as well. You don't want to, yeah, I'm gonna just for now keep it simple. So git status, you can see now there is nothing happening here. But if we do something like git log, and maybe I'm gonna add this special argument one line, and then I'm gonna say 3. So that means log the last 3 commits. And because we only have a single one, we can see a commit here. So the commit here is basically, you can see the hash, which is the first 7 characters of the actual hash of this particular commit, and that uniquely identifies this particular commit. And you can see here that on our master branch, we have a single commit. That's everything we need to know for now. I'm going to now clear the screen. You do that by just typing in clear. And now there is a second step. We want to open up my GitHub profile here, and we want to go to repositories, and we want to go and create a new one, okay? And maybe we can do something like Streamlit playground, okay? And you can put some description if you want here. Simple Streamlit app, whatever. And you can make it public or private. And depending on this particular setting, once we deploy our Streamlit app, it's either going to be publicly accessible to everyone, or if we set it to private, then no one will be able to access the app except for ourselves, and except for the folks whom we explicitly add via sending them an email, and then they can access the dashboard. So it all depends. You have the flexibility of making your dashboard either public or private. I'm gonna go with public here, and that's all. I'm just going to hit create repo. We can ignore all of the other settings here. We can safely ignore all of those, and you can now see here GitHub is very useful, and they tell us if we have existing repo, as we do, then we can just push an existing repo from the command line. So let's just copy paste all of these commands here. So let's git remote add origin. So this connects this local repository to this remote repository. As simple as that. It just tells it, hey, your remote repo is at this particular URL. Let's hit enter. Next up, we're going to, I think this just renames the branch name from master to main. And yeah, you can see here the name of the branch has changed. And now we can do git push to the origin from our main branch. So we just push to the origin that we defined up there from our main branch. So if we do this, so as you can see here, now if I refresh this, we still have this description. But if I hit enter, we're going to push these changes to this particular repo here. And if I hit refresh now, we can see that we have our app right here. As simple as that. Super simple. Okay, let me go back here. So we saw how to create a GitHub repo. We saw how to initialize the local Git repo, and we saw the whole secrets thing. But now you might wonder, how is the deployed app going to access the secrets, because we only have it here locally, right? So now comes the final part. Let's go and type in Streamlit Cloud. Let me open it up here. Let me sign in here. And now I'm gonna create the first app. So I'm gonna hit just new app. And then everything I need to do, so because I've already gone through this process, you will initially, the cloud, the Streamlit Cloud will ask you to give it permissions to access your GitHub repo. You can just go ahead and say that's fine. And now you can see here, it's so easy. We just need to specify the repo we just created here, the branch, and the name of the file. So for us, the name of the file is actually streamlit.py, not this streamlit-app.py. So we're just gonna copy it here. And then if we hit deploy, this should hopefully work, and we will have an app that's publicly accessible. Let me see. So now, as you can see here, it's just in the background, it's building probably some environment stuff and hosting this app, and probably provisioning some machines, or probably a single machine that later anybody in the world can access via this particular URL. You will still have to have this particular URL to be able to access the app. There are options to specify a custom domain. I am fairly sure Streamlit at this point of time, and this is beginning of 2023, they still do not support custom domains, but there are ways to use stuff like Kangrok and some other tools that you can do to connect this particular URL to a public URL that you bought. And then, okay, yeah, I made a mistake. So I forgot to add the secrets. Let me. So I did mention that, but I forgot to do it either case. So let me see what I can do here. Can I go back here? Yes, I can. I'm going to delete this. So this was a mistake. Now you can see how the whole process looks like. You have to kind of delete the app, and then let me create an app again. So I'm gonna specify this again. Let me paste this name here, and then hit advanced settings. And here you want to specify your secret. So I'm gonna just do this. So I'm now going to do something like this. We might want to specify, well, they only have 3.9. That's gonna work. It's gonna be compatible with our app. So just do this, copy paste your key, and this will make it safe. This is like Streamlit now takes care that this secret is safe. Well, we do have to trust that they are doing a proper job in the background, but yeah. So now if we deploy, let me now redeploy it again and see the final app. Okay, it's running. Your app is in the oven. You've seen how simple this is. Like, it literally took me a day to completely get like comfortable with Streamlit and building apps in Streamlit. Next up, we're gonna focus on Gradio and Next.js. Do let me know if you want me to cover Next.js or not. So again, there is this spectrum of between Python and JavaScript. Python on one hand side is something that's like very easy to get started with, especially if you're coming from a data science background or if you're a machine learning engineer or whatnot. You're probably familiar with Python, which means that the barrier to entry to building these apps is gonna be way lower. But then on the other hand side, you have JavaScript frameworks such as Next.js, which is probably a bit steeper learning curve. There is more to learn, especially if you're not familiar with JavaScript. But then again, there is the performance. Python is not as performant for web apps as JavaScript is. So JavaScript is kind of the lingua franca of browsers. So like the native language of browsers. So because of that, you'll be able to create more performant apps. You'll have more customization opportunities. It's just battle tested for building web apps. So it's a trade-off. So do let me know if you want me to cover Next.js or not in a couple of videos. Okay, as you can see here, the app is finally ready. So we can, we have the bro and sis labels. Okay, and then yeah, we can do something like hi bro, and then hit classify. So what happens in the background? I hit classify. We ping the HuggingFace Inference API. There is some neural network in the background that runs on these inputs. It creates the zero-shot labels and then just gives me the prediction back via a JSON file, and then we just display that particular JSON object directly in our app. That's it, guys. We've seen everything that you need to know to build your own Streamlit apps. You know how to deploy it. You learned a bit about Git in case you didn't know about it. So hopefully this was useful. If it was, please let me know. Comment down below. I'd love to hear your feedback. And until next video, bye bye.